Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2. Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Trevor Watkins from the Fellowship of the Parks Church in Hazlet. Thank you for coming out today, sir. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for being here among us. And Father, we pray for your wisdom, Lord. We ask that the decisions that are made here today would be made in light of your wisdom and with your guidance. Father, we pray for your blessing on everyone here, that they would experience your presence, not just in this room now, but in their lives, in their personal lives, Father, for their families, that you would watch over, protect them, and guide them. Lord, we ask for your blessings, the things that we could never earn or deserve on our own. Thank you, Lord. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Pastor Watkins, for coming out today.
Thank you.
I would just make a note. Commissioner Wynn will be here in just a little bit. He was visiting with family members of a family that was affected by the shooting this past weekend, and so we need to keep that family in our prayers and know that Commissioner Wynn may have some comments about that when he gets here and joins us. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have a number of announcemos as it relates to the agenda today. Start under the Administrator section, item 9A, 7, and 8. We're going to ask that we hold these two items until after close. Under the District Attorney's Office, item 9F2. This concerns action with age resources of rural Texas. We will not be taking any action on that today. Under Facilities Management, item 9I1. This is amendment number 1 to the contract with Broadus & Associates. We're going to hold that amendment for 1 week. Under Public Health, item 9L5. This concerns a contract renewal with Sickle Cell Disease Association. We're going to hold that for 1 week.
What is the problem with that particular item?
There is, in the contract itself, it calls for this association to pay us a flat fee of, I believe, $18,000 in quarterly payments. And really what it is, it's a reimbursement. So we'll need to go back and change that agreement so that it says that they will reimburse us in an amount not to exceed $18,000. And then under the Sheriff's Department, item 9N, 2, and 4. These are the acceptance of forfeited vehicles. We're going to hold those two items until the sheriff asks that we put these back on the agenda. And then finally, I just want to make the court aware that there is a PEBC meeting tomorrow, and it's at COG, and I believe it starts at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You have before you the minutes of our July the 12th meeting.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have two proclamations today. One certificate of congratulations. Commissioner Brooks?
I move ratification of the certificate of congratulations presented to Tanya Vesey for her service on the John Peter Smith Health Network Board of Managers, already presented. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus.
I have a resolution today to a very extraordinary young man, Colby Bannister, and I would like to read it, and after that, I'll ask Colby and his mother if they would like to come up. Whereas Colby Bannister, a Special Olympics world champion gymnast, was recognized as Male Athlete of the Year and received the Outreach Award in Area 11 while winning 19 gold and 3 silver medals over the last 2 years in high bar, parallel bar, rings, floor, vault, pommel horse, and all-around events. And whereas Colby currently serves on the Board of Directors for Special Olympics Texas and travels throughout the United States promoting Special Olympics, and whereas Colby represented the United States in the 2011 Special Olympics World Summer Games in Athens, Greece, where he competed with over 7,000 athletes from 185 nations. And whereas he brought home the gold in the high bar event, silver medals in the parallel bars and rings event, and bronze medals in the all-around and floor event. And whereas Colby was selected to attend the United States Ambassador's reception in Athens, Greece, where he was introduced to Tim Sheaver, Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive Officer of Special Olympics International. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby commend Colby Bannister for his outstanding achievements at the 2011 Special Olympics World Summer Games, as well as throughout his life, and wish him continued success as a senior global messenger for Special Olympics. In witness, therefore, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 26th day of July, 2011. Colby, if I could have you come up.
I'll second his motion.
And
We'll all second. The motion passes unanimously. You want to come up further, or you can? Would you like to say a few words? You can come right here to the microphone.
Okay. Let me give you this. Thank you. This is a great honor to represent Texas for Special Olympics. And I had a great time at Greece and show them I can do it. It's all about athletes like me, because we make a difference in this world, because we are Texas, and I represent Team USA. Thank you.
Colby, thank you very, very much. We're very proud. We're very proud.
Got his own baseball card. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That is fantastic, Colby. We're very proud of you, and we're very glad that you came down to be with us today. Thank you very, very much. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda, excluding items 9I1, 9L5, and 9N, 2, and 4.
Move approval with those exclusions.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. It's a little crooked.
Yeah, it's a little crooked.
I have a feeling after today it's going to change anyway, so. Actually,
you
not
recognize.
if you bend your head a little bit, it looks straight, so. Okay. Members of the court, on item number 1, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a preliminary illustrative map concerning the redistricting of county commissioners' precincts and to set a public hearing date to receive comments concerning precinct redistricting. Let me make a few comments first. The map that you see here today and the map that we'll enter into the books and then what you have there is a preliminary map. It does not mean that this is the final map. There's obviously going to be some changes. But we need to approve this as a preliminary map so that when we do have our public hearing, we can illustrate this as a proposed map with changes so that we can receive input from citizens of this county and get their comments as it relates to the various redistricting efforts. I also would like for you to look at the possibility of holding a public hearing on Wednesday, August 17th, here in the Commissioners' Courtroom. I would think we would probably want to start that public hearing around 6:30 or 7 so that people who are working have the ability to come down and voice their opinion. And as you look at your calendar, and I don't know if that's a good date or not, I'd like to discuss that, and if we need to wait to set that until after close, and that's fine also.
Are you saying the 17th?
Yes, 17th of
That's the
August.
last day of our budget hearings, according to my calendar.
We should be pretty much finished with budget hearings by
We
then.
anticipate those. Those are just in case.
Hopefully we'll be finished that Tuesday, but if not, well, then we'll all be here, and we can just simply go directly into a public hearing after that.
What time?
About 7 o'clock.
Mr. Manius,
Yes.
I would prefer not to approve this preliminary map this morning because there's some tinkering that's going to go on around the edges in the next day or so. If you would give us another week to approve this preliminary map, let us go ahead and set the public hearing for August 17th. Then we will have a map in a week that represents the intentions of this court. I don't think that this map quite reaches that threshold yet.
Then I would ask if we do that if you would please send your changes to me so that we can put them on the map, change the map. And,
That's fair enough.
Okay. And what we are going to do, we set the public hearing, we're going to publicize that in all the various newspapers throughout the county. We intend to create a preliminary map and have it on display in your sub-courthouses. And also, we would like your assistance in finding out the addresses of concerned groups that we might want to send a notice of the public hearing.
Sure.
So we're not going to take action today. Everybody's going to get any suggested changes, and we're going to try to come up with approve a preliminary map next week. We're going to go ahead and set the public hearing for August the 17th, which is a Wednesday night, and we'll start it at 7, and it'll be here in the Commissioner's Courtroom.
So moved.
Second.
So I think what we're actually moving is the public hearing at
We're
this
setting the
point in time.
public hearing at this
And
time.
then we'll approve a preliminary next week.
That's correct.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court accept the 2012 grant award from the Texas Automobile Burglary and Theft Prevention Authority in the amount of $1,076,113.
GK, been a lot of correspondence and discussion about this. I tried to get a hold of the sheriff yesterday. It's my understanding he's on vacation out of state. But it's my understanding that he is not interested in pursuing this grant. And he is the CEO of that committee or whatever?
The sheriff is the chairman of the oversight board.
All right.
And it is you might remember.
But, well, I'm
yes,
not
sorry.
finished.
I'm
But,
sorry.
and also I got a notice from the police chief of the city of Fort Worth that he is interested in this being pursued. I have not visited with any of the other cities, but if we accept this grant, and I understand we're out of time, what is it, got to be done by the 1st of August?
It has to be within the next several weeks.
Next several weeks?
Actually, by next Tuesday.
Of the next week, then?
Yes.
If we request this grant, and for some reason we don't do this, where does that put us?
Well, first of all, and Commissioner Johnson, you might remember when we originally established this task force.
I do.
It's the Commissioner's Court who establishes a task force. And the chairman of that board is someone that is elected by the membership of the task force. Ever since the various conversations that occurred last week, there has been numerous telephone calls made to the state seeking this money by other law enforcement agencies, not only in this county but in other parts of the state. If in fact the sheriff decides that he does not want to be the chair anymore, then this Commissioner's Court can reconstitute the task force and we can fund the task force. My concern is if we don't take action today, that it sends a signal that we are simply indecisive as to if we want this task force or not. I've been contacted by several chiefs of police, and they've advised that they want this task force. And so I think what really happened was that there might have been some miscommunication within the task force itself and maybe from the staff of the task force, and that might have led the sheriff to make some of those comments. But it's the responsibility of this court to accept this grant award, and if in fact there needs to be some type of modification in the task force, well, then we can make sure that that happens also. The key is not to lose this money. This money is a little over $7,400 more than we received last year. And so it will fund the task force at the same level, quite frankly, as it has been funding it for years in the past.
I, too, have heard from many chiefs of police around the county, and there seems to be near unanimous support for this task force. I don't know where the breakdown in communication has come, but I do recognize that the task force is this Commissioner's Court's responsibility. And based upon the fact that auto theft numbers have gone down significantly over the years, based upon the work of this task force, and the fact that individual police agencies around the county have come to depend upon this task force to help secure the property of their individual citizens, I will move that we accept this grant on behalf of the citizens of Tarrant County.
I will second, and I'd like to ask, what is the deal with Mansfield duplicating our efforts here in Tarrant County? I understand that they have requested money for them.
They have, Mansfield has joined with Johnson and Ellis counties. Johnson County currently is a member of our task force, but they are going to move over with Ellis and Mansfield to create a new task force. The monies that Mansfield and that task force receive did not take away from any of the monies that we have here.
Okay.
I too have heard from a number of chiefs in my area, and every one of them that I've talked to wants to stay engaged with this program.
Any other discussion?
No.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 3, we request that the court approve an attached contract amendment to the ILA as it relates with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality for the LIRAP program, and authorize the judge to execute the documents.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve the submission of a grant application to the Innovative Community and Academic Partnership, which is ICAP, for expansion of the Reaching Independence Through Self-Empowerment program, which is operated out of County Criminal Court number 9.
Move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
If we could skip to number 6 real quick, Mr. Mendez is going to do number 5. On number 6, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court consider and approve a within-region travel request, which is an exception to the county's travel policy as it relates to Constable Precinct 1.
Move for approval.
Second.
Going to Granbury, is that right?
Yes.
Hope he's not staying at the end. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, Mr. Mendez is going to do item number 5.
Gee, thanks.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Prepared a little light reading for the court this morning. What you have before you is the final reporting of the legislation that passed as it affects county government and Tarrant County specifically. We sorted all the bills as they affect respective county departments, and included in that is a synopsis of the impact of that legislation. We will transmit a copy of that to all department heads around the county for their use and information. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? And if I could get a motion to receive and file?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the 82nd Texas Legislature's regular session and call session final report. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark. Ms. Tidwell.
Good morning. We have 2 items for the court to consider this morning. The first is to approve the release of the depository collateral of approximately the $22 million that's listed in your court communique. We go up, we go down based on the amount of collections, the time of year, and the tax office. So we're recommending the release.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our other item is to ask the court to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the period 9 months ended June 30th, 2011.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Snyder.
Risk Management Board is recommending the payment of the 4 claims that are listed on your agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have several subrogation checks for receiving by the auditor's office after approval by the court. They are in the following amounts. The first one is $596.25. The second one is $654.42. The third one is $621.38. The fourth one is $256.08, and the final one is $200.
Move for approval to accept.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Rayburn? Nope, I didn't figure. I didn't see him out there. Come on down. How are you this morning?
How are you?
Great.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here to ask the court to accept the appointment of the election judges and alternate judges for a one-year term.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Gail, don't run off for just a minute. I've received several calls last week, and I called and talked to you from mayors in various cities about the voting machines that we're not going to be able to provide. And then right in the middle of one of these conversations, I got an email from y'all's office that there might be a possibility of making some changes with the parties, the Democrat and Republican parties, doing some consolidation, and machines might be available. Has that ever been confirmed?
We are in the process of working on that now. We're waiting to get final word from both party chairs as to whether the parties will agree to this.
Okay. I don't know, have y'all received calls?
I've received calls from probably 10 cities. Some of them have talked to Steve.
Right.
I can say that most of them have not been happy with what they've been hearing. And I've talked to GK, and it's my understanding we're going to have a meeting. And I've also heard that a number of other counties around us have figured out ways to accommodate these elections, and I'm hoping we can do the same.
That's our plan.
Okay.
Ditto.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's the biggest issue we've been dealing with for the last month. Okay?
Me too.
Okay. Other than redistricting.
That's no big
Morning.
deal.
Good morning.
We have two items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the tax office. The property tax refund manager is going to retire at the end of August with 400 vacation hours. The impact to the general fund will be approximately $12,000.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. As we moved by the facilities area, I would recall that we're supposed to look at the sample paint job draped over the parapet on the old courthouse and make any comments that we might want to make. So you might, as you look out your windows after the meeting, make any comments you'd like to make.
What's the street?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Shining it.
I like the samples on the right and the left of the one in the middle.
The right?
This,
Well,
this is the building next door to Whitley Falls, across the street.
across the street from Whitley Falls.
Don't go there. Don't get me started.
Falls are running.
Beecham, get up here before I get in trouble. Good morning.
Your Honor, Mr. Early always has to follow me to the podium, and sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes not so much.
I'd like
If
to
I were
read.
a tie like that had several targets on it, I wouldn't be worried too much about
I'd like to,
following you from
probably every week I'm reminded by some county employee of my red and white heritage. I won't divulge this person's email address, but her name's Ann Farmer. But I received this in the mail. I'd like to read this to the court this morning. It's entitled A Homeless Man's Funeral. As a bagpiper, I play many gigs. Recently, I was asked by a funeral director to play the graveside service for a homeless man. He had no family or friends, so the service was to be held at a pauper cemetery in the Arkansas backcountry. As I was not familiar with the backwoods, I got lost. Being a typical man, I didn't stop for directions. I finally arrived an hour late and saw the funeral guy had evidently gone, and the hearse was nowhere in sight. There were only the diggers and the crew left, and they were eating lunch. I felt badly and apologized to the men for being late. I went to the side of the grave and looked down, and the vault lid was already in place. I didn't know what else to do, so I started to play. The workers put down their lunches and began to gather around. I played out my heart and soul for this man with no family and friends. I played like I'd never played before for this homely man. As I played Amazing Grace, the workers began to weep. They wept, I wept. We all wept together. When I finished, I packed up my bagpipes and started for the car. When my head hung low, my heart was full. As I opened the door to my car, I heard one of the workers say, "I've never seen nothing like that before, and I've been putting in septic tanks for 20 years.
Rotary Club, maybe fine.
Well, thank you, Mr. Oliver. We'll keep that in mind in the future.
We do have 5 business items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award.
So we're going to actually go right ahead.
Our first item is a bid award recommendation for our bid number 2011-073. This is a bid for the 1895 Courthouse County Clerk Interior Electrical Improvements. A recommendation be to award to Basecom Incorporated in the amount of $59,954. If approved, we're also seeking contract approval and acceptance of the payment and performance bond. We did receive a bid from Gissiner Electric. They did not either sign the signature page or include it, so they were not considered.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-088. This is our contract for window washing. Our recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique. We had another problem with a bid that we received from International Building Services. They actually underestimated the scope of the project, left off a couple of second stories of the buildings, and asked to be that their bid be rescinded.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 3 is another bid award recommendation for our bid number 2011-109. This is a bid for the purchase of VeriSign Premium Validation Layer Certificates for our managed public key information services. A recommendation would be to award to CompuQuick, amount of $53,920.50. This very simply these are certificates to verify our website security. Mr. Blazak is here to answer questions if you have.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. What are we buying?
Certificate.
These are digital certificates, Your Honor. They're used in SSL transfers. So every time you go to a website, on the old browsers, you used to get the little padlock that locked. Now you get a green bar with an extended validation certificate. We've been doing this for Tarrant County for about 8 years now. All of our sites are SSL sites that we publish out, even though it doesn't appear that way.
There you go. Did you understand it?
It makes it so that the transmission of any information, any private information that you would send is encrypted in transit.
So basically, we're buying something that as we send information out, it encrypts it?
If any information that's between the browser and our website is encrypted across the internet, yes.
So what determines the number of these we need to buy?
The number of websites that you put up,
The number of websites we put up?
correct.
And how do you determine the number of websites we put up?
Well, every site that you put up, transportation just had one turn up. The extended,
How many websites do we have up right now?
about 72.
And so can anybody just put up a website that decides they want to put up a website?
With your all approval and
I don't recall us ever approving any of those, so I'm trying to figure out how that happened.
steering committee approval to build a website like our portals, www.tarrantcounty.com, all of that type of stuff. All of the sites under there are all websites, and so there's multiple layers that have to happen.
And how much does each one of those websites cost us?
Certificate for those websites, if they publish outside, is $1,078 a site.
Okay.
If we have 72, why are we only asking for 50?
Because they renew at 1 and 2 year increments, so I buy about 50 a year, and that carries us through. I started this process in March.
And what process do we go through to evaluate whether or not we need all 72, or if they can be consolidated, or whatever?
If the website can be consolidated, we consolidate it, but the websites themselves, as they expose to the public, are the ones that carry that certificate.
Okay.
So anything that exposes to the public is what we put the certificates on.
And so again, I guess the basis of my question goes to, there is a group somewhere that is approving the fact that if somebody decides they want to create a website, that it
Right, the websites have to be built to come up within the county. It has to have an application that's used for production, visibility to the public. Our test sites, our internal sites, all of those, we don't put these types of certificates on. Even though we create SSL connections, we use a Microsoft Certificate Authority that we built up. The reason for this type of certificate is they're loaded into the browsers. The root certificate is loaded into the browsers by Microsoft when it's distributed, so there's no fact that the person would say, you get a pop-up when there's a untrusted certificate authority, and we would pop up, with our own certificate authority, we would pop up as untrusted to people, and they might not accept that, then they wouldn't be able to access our data.
Are these certificates for 1-year periods?
These certificates are all certificates are 1-year certificates. When we put in a 2-year cert, it takes 2 certs out of our store.
So back to Commissioner Johnson's question of, so sometime between now or sometime this year, we're going to be looking for the other 19 certificates.
Well, we will probably not order those until the end of the year and end of next year, or middle of next year. We ordered these in March, is when we started this process, because I know that we generally get down, our certificate store generally gets down to a low number of 5 to 6 certificates around the middle of June.
Okay. I now understand what we're buying. Good. And I think I need a motion in a second. I do, okay. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 4 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-111, sale of recycled asphalt for precinct number 2. Recommendation will be toward to the high bidder on a per unit price basis at $2.75 per ton.
Move for approval.
Oh, I
You're
second.
here. I'm sorry.
I apologize for being late. I was at the memorial home helping out with the families of the shooting victims in Grand Prairie.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-116. This is an annual contract for HemoPoint H2 supplies and equipment for the Health Department. Recommendation be toward the low bidder, Stan Bio Laboratory, on a per enterprise basis. Last year's expenditures were approximately $50,000.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Sheriff's Department. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Chief.
Great, sir. Thank you. The Sheriff's Office would like to ask for the court's approval of an interlocal agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for the continuation of the Mobility Assistance Program, otherwise known as the Courtesy Patrol.
You found that that has gone well the past year?
Oh, yes. Yeah. The side benefit of that program is that we help people. The real purpose of the program is to keep people moving so that the air gets cleaner. But the fact that we get to help a lot of people and help them keep moving, fix their flat tires, or give them some gas to get on about their way to the next gas station is a great benefit. And we hear constantly, just every day, people will call or send in commentaries about how much they appreciate the Courtesy Patrol.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'd just like to echo that. I think it is great. From at least the statistics I've seen, when we took that program over, y'all have significantly increased the number of assistance that you've given than what the Texas Department of Transportation was doing when they had the program. And so we're very appreciative, and I know the citizens are who get help. So I hear the same thing over and over again. So appreciate very much your work there.
Thank you.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lamb? Nope. Come on down, Randy. Good morning.
Members of the court, we are requesting your approval of a local project advance funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation. This is related to improvements to State Highway 26, the section from Brumlow Pool intersection to John McCain.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You said advanced funding. Are we back to paying before they ever start work, or is this work are they fixing to actually spend the money?
This is the terminology that TxDOT's always used for their agreements, but the way that is structured in this particular agreement is that we pay our portion out, excuse me, we don't pay the entire amount up front. It's paid out over.
Okay. We're just basically saying that we are approving the $4 million.
Correct.
We'll then pay it out as the work is done.
Correct.
Okay.
Glenn, this is the project that's, from Brumlow to John,
Right.
1,000 feet past John McCain, and the city of Colleyville is providing $5.1 million, I think, or
It's 5.1.
$5,070,000. The RTC is advancing $2.5 million from future funds that are available on 26, but won't be available for till 2015. And so,
Well, it used to be that TxDOT wanted all their money well before they ever started construction.
Right.
And so they got to keep our money as opposed to us getting to keep it. And they changed that policy. So when you said advanced funding, that just kind of flicked a light bulb on, and it was dull, but I still remembered it. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Randy. Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
I believe that's on the consent agenda.
You're right. It was on the consent agenda. I'm sorry. Commissioner Johnson.
I move approval of 9Q2, A through D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments?
Yes, sir, I do. I do have 2 appointments this morning. Let me pass out.
Okay.
I would like to appoint Ms. Regina Nagel Howell Foster. She is an attorney from Grand Prairie onto the CPS board. That is in addition to the existing members.
So this is a vacant position you're filling?
This is a vacant position, yes, sir.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And I would like to appoint Mr. D.T. Nguyen. He's the president and founder of MedAsset Revenue Cycle Management. He's an expert in hospital administration. And he's a technologist, and as well as a very strong financial expert. And I would like to make a motion to appoint Mr. D.T. Nguyen onto the JPS board, please.
And he is filling, is he filling a position?
Of Mr. Dan Sonas.
Okay.
Second.
Can we have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no other appointments at this time. You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have 3 items that we'd like to bring to you this morning. The first is the monthly update from the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the Court at this time.
Thank you, Mr.
Morning,
Manius.
Mr. Early.
Good morning, Commissioners, and Your Honor. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. Couple things. I think you all should be proud of your public hospital in the sense that one of the things that's the most difficult to do is when somebody comes in as a trauma patient that's one of the people that protect our community. Whether it's a firefighter or a police officer, those are always the calls you don't want to hear. And when we had the City of Fort Worth police officer shot, they came to your Level 1 Trauma Center. And I can tell you without bragging rights, that Level 1 Trauma Center did a great job. And one of the things that is not only important to the care of the patient, but how you deal with fellow officers who are very concerned, family, and in a situation where it's law enforcement, you oftentimes have 2 sides on that situation. You have the individual who might have perpetrated a crime and the law enforcement official that may be the victim of a shooting accident or something else like that. Oftentimes, both of those individuals are coming to our facility. So making sure that they're handled in the right way, making sure that the media is contacted, making sure that's the situation. And, of course, on that particular day, we had a police officer come, and then the unfortunate situation at the ballpark all at the same day at JPS. We had 2 other major traumas come in that were motorcycle accidents. But I think that you all should be proud of the fact that you have a public hospital that, as a Level 1 trauma center, can not only handle that, we've fortunately or unfortunately gotten skilled at handling those situations from all aspects. So I wanted to report to you all that. The other thing I wanted to report is that we received an award for life donations. What we became, we dealt with 44 other hospitals in our region for donating life gift, and that is allowing your living self to be an organ donor. JPS, its employees, had more of that than any other hospital in this section, and we're proud of that honor. That's something that we do to provide life, and that's something where your employees at your public hospital are stepping up to the plate to become organ donors, should that need present itself. The last thing is something that doesn't really need to be said as far as introductions to y'all, and that is just be cautious of the heat. We're seeing more people come into an emergency room that think that 105 is a good time to trim your trees or cut your yard. Don't. Be cautious in this kind of weather. It's amazing what the heat can do to you. So don't, I think it's just a notion to be very cautious, because we're seeing a lot more folks come into our emergency room, and I'm sure the other emergency rooms throughout the county are seeing the same thing, so be cautious.
Legislative session is done. You all got your briefing. I want to compliment Mark Mendez for his help on the piece of legislation that we had dealing with TIFs and the work that he did at commandeering that through the session, watching over it, making sure that we had the right testimony before, getting it through the House and getting it through the Senate. Mark needs nice compliments, as well as Mr. Manius, who commandeered that piece of legislation. The other piece of legislation that will make a difference to JPS that was passed this session is we now have the ability to hire our own doctors. JPS has been, as well as all other public hospitals, have been restricted to having a direct contract with a physician. We always had to go through a 501c group, and now we no longer have that situation. That may come to play, and it may not come to play. We don't have any efforts in place right now. But where that would be a benefit is, for example, a doctor may say that I just want to come in, I want to join JPS, I don't want to deal with the overhead of private practice, I don't want to deal with becoming a part of a group, I'd like JPS to handle all my billings and my codings and everything else. Could be a benefit to some that want to choose that. Doesn't have to be. And again, we're not thinking of using that tool in any way right now. It's just nice to have. Had we not had that ability, we would have been one of the few public hospitals not to have it, because most of the major public hospitals in Texas now have that ability. We now are going to be in the same situation, which is, I think, positive for us. Also, we went through and communicated to our medical staff. This wasn't something that we surprised our medical staff with. We communicated with them and found that we found support from them before we pursued and went further.
Didn't you also talk with the society, county society?
We did. We talked to the county society, and at first they were not positive towards the idea. They went back and sort of looked at the issue again and then took a position of neutrality on it and said this is probably not a position for the County Med Society to weigh in on. The only person at the County Med Society who is an actual doctor at JPS was supportive of it, and I think that was very helpful to them. So we did that in a very upfront way, not some kind of piece of legislation we snuck through in the midnight hour.
But again, you're not expecting any wholesale changes in the way the hospital relates with its medical.
No, Commissioner. I think it will continue in the same manner. I think this is more of a situation where it would be isolated hirings, if need be, that's a benefit both to the hospital and to the physician. The other thing is that we will have shortly up on our website, open for the public and for you, and we'll also give you a hard copy of it, which is our facility and utilization plan. It was reported in the newspaper. What that is a look at where we want JPS to be in the future. It looks not only at buildings, but it looks at what we should do in our community clinics to make them more efficient, particularly with patients that have transportational needs. Having so many clinics that sometimes are 2 and 3 miles away from each other, we cause our patients to go to 3 different locations on some types of situations, which is horrible. Shouldn't be doing that. So we've looking at a better plan for our facilities going forward. The one thing that the plan is overriding on is not to spread out so much, but to go up. You help your transportational needs. And if you begin to bundle your services, it makes it far more beneficial for the patient and for transportational needs. You'll be able to look through that entire site as well as your constituents will. We want everybody to know where we think JPS can be in the future. The thing that seemed to be the most exciting was the recommendation by the facility plan team that Main Street look to close, and that would bring the 2 buildings at JPS to be able to combine. That was a recommendation that they made. That happened to be of a 300-page report, the one that was the most interesting, I guess. If that happens, I think it does bring efficiency to us, but we haven't spoken with the city at this time. And the other thing that's interesting about that is everybody we took it, sent it to the board, let the board look through it, and the board quickly raffled through the pages to get to the last page, see how much it cost. And it's not a cost factor. It does cost, but we're not going to do it until we have our own efficiencies. There are efficiencies that we need to meet at JPS, and there are metrics that we need to put in place before we come out and say, here's a great, wonderful $135 million plan. It doesn't work that way. It works with what can we do that's efficient with transporting patients or moving things or putting in different metrics that could gain us the financial ability to make some of those changes. Just to take the St. Joe's building down, which ultimately we will have to do someday, because that's going to be a hazard, and it's not a building that we can restore. Is going to cost a good deal of money just to take it down. We don't have that money right now, but I think What we need to do is being responsible to say, here's the plan for the future, look towards it, and help us try to figure out how to get there. That includes our physicians. That includes everybody in the community. It would bring about a philanthropic effort to make that happen. But I think if we don't tell people what our plans are or what our hopes are, we'll never get to it. So that's what that's all about. And you will see that plan, so shall your constituents. The last thing is we're meeting every day regarding our budget. It is our intention, and it will be what we will do. We will present to you when it comes time to come to the Commissioners' Court a balanced budget. We will not come to you with a plan that has, well, we're going to wink, wink, and nod a bit, and hopefully we'll get to this number. You will see a balanced budget. However, in that process, there are some huge conditions out there that we don't know about. The state has sent up a waiver to the federal government, to CMS, for a federal waiver on managed care. Managed care for the state of Texas will go into effect September 1. If it goes into effect, the state of Texas will lose, as it goes into effect as it's written, the state of Texas will lose a huge amount of upper payment limits, UPL dollars. That's why the waiver was put in place. The waiver was submitted to CMS last week. That waiver could mean a benefit to us and a benefit to a lot of hospitals in our area. But we won't know unless CMS takes action on it and passes it. So we're going to have to write a budget knowing the dollars we have, not the dollars we want to have or the dollars we hope for. We're going to write a budget based on that. Once we write that budget, CMS could agree to it on September 1 or CMS could agree to it on October 15. So I think this time you do have to have a bit of a nimble budget, and we have to have a potential amendment to a budget after we pass one, because things financially could change significantly for us. But we want to be responsible about that. We also understand your attitude and your interest in making sure that we're tax accountable to the citizens, as you are as commissioners and the judge. So that's our same approach. We take two approaches at JPS, the patient and the taxpayer, and knowing what we do to benefit both. So that's what we'll do in the form of a budget to y'all. So that's all I have. I can't reduce the temperature. I still have to follow Jack, and we have budget issues. But other than that, we're fine.
Well, at least you didn't have a joke about a septic tank.
We have no bagpipers at JPS. So,
any
thank
questions?
Well, Robert, I just want to, I know I haven't told you this before, and especially lately, but I do appreciate your diligence in managing JPS.
Thank you.
I want to let you know that I like the consolidation plan in Precinct 2 a lot.
Thank you
for that.
I appreciate your comments very much, and we look forward to our new board member. I look forward to meeting Mr. Wynn and getting to know him, and I welcome him to our board, and I'm sure his colleagues on the board will welcome him. Your last appointment was welcomed. We gave him cookies like we give the rest, and he seemed to do well. So thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Robert.
It's always good to see you.
Mr. Manius?
Your Honor, we could go to item B. This concerns a request for tax abatement by KXAS NBC5, City of Fort Worth. Ms. McMillan is here to address the court at this time.
Judge, Commissioners, after over 60 years at the current location off of I-30 in Oakland, KXAS NBC5 is looking now to relocate to a newer, larger facility central to the Metroplex, and in order to actually also consolidate their Dallas operations and their Fort Worth operations into one location. There's several choices they have to locate this site, but the top choice they have is a location in Centerport, actually on Amon Carter Boulevard at FAA Boulevard. This would, again, keep the Amon Carter legacy alive and with relation to KXAS and its history. They're proposing to build a new production studio of 75,000 square foot, a LEED certified building, at a cost of $8 million in construction costs and another $8 million to be added to the site in business personal property. 200 jobs that are currently located at the Fort Worth location would be retained at this site, and an estimated 78 jobs that are currently located in Dallas locations will be moved to this facility also. The City of Fort Worth has approved a 25-year incentive program for this consolidation. 1-year tax abatement to allow other entities to participate in tax abatement, and a 24-year economic development agreement. Staff has proposed participation in tax abatement with the City of Fort Worth for this location at a maximum of 50% of the new real and personal property value for a period of 10 years. The base abatement would be 35%, and that would be earned by the construction of the facility at a cost of $16 million, $8 million real property, $8 million personal property, and the retention of the 200 jobs at that site. An additional 15% abatement can be added in increments based on additional employment levels and other performance-based criteria. And that's outlined in your sheets included in the packet. KXAS has requested, though, a variance from our policy where we require 25% of the employees to be located. There'd be Tarrant County employees or Tarrant County residents would be part of their overall employment base. Currently, that is what they have. They have a majority of their employees at the Fort Worth site are Tarrant County employees. However, with their FCC licensing requirements, they are required to recruit throughout their viewing area, which is much larger than just the Tarrant County area. Though they will retain those employees and they will continue to try to have larger amounts of Tarrant County employees, they just can't say that they're going to meet those and have those as a base requirement of the base abatement. So they've asked for a variance from that part of our tax abatement policy.
Is that one of the incentives?
We have incentivized for an additional bonus that if they have more than 65% of Tarrant County employees in their full-time employment base, that they could get bonus percentage abatement. Typically, though, you have to have at least 25%, which we do think they're going to meet that to make the base abatement. We're just going to take that away. But they still will be incentivized if they have additional above 65%.
It's a good balance. It's a good balance.
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
That's fine. She just said it was a good balance.
Okay. Yes, a balance. Based on the $16 million in value being added to the site and a maximum abatement of 50%, we're estimating over the 10 years that we would abate approximately $212,000 over that period. The hospital district is not being asked to participate in this, and so during that time period, they would continue to receive full value on all the tax revenues for the site. Tom Ellman, the President and General Manager of KXAS, is here, and I'd like to have him come forward and talk a little bit more about the project.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
It's nice to be here. Thank you, Your Honor and Commissioners. I am the President and General Manager of NBC5, and I just thought I would come here this morning and give you a few minutes on the scope of this project. It's a very large project. It's not just going to be a NBC5 studio and station. It's going to be a Dallas-Fort Worth media center for all NBC Universal properties. That's the goal of the project. That would include NBC5, of course, as the biggest tenant, hiring the largest number of employees, but also would include Telemundo, KXTX, the local Telemundo affiliate that serves the Hispanic community of Tarrant County. It also would include a Telemundo production center that produces news and information for regional Telemundo stations throughout Texas, as well as stations across the western United States. It would also include a large graphics company called Artworks, which provides graphics for the NBC-owned television stations across the country, as well as graphics for NBC News, NBC Sports, and CNBC. Would also include our NBC News Network Bureau, which currently operates out of here. They are the Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana team that covers national news for NBC, and the Weather Channel, which is owned by NBC. It's a team that was the first team to arrive in Joplin a few months ago, as far as giving national coverage to the tragedy in Missouri. And we also have a Universal Films group, which handles local theater transaction, box office, and things like that for Universal Films. And in addition to that, there's 5 other smaller business units, 11 business units total that we would hopefully combine all of those business units into this facility. So there's 11 business units, and there's a lot of different stakeholders. And I'm the leader of the project. I know the importance of KXAS NBC5 staying in Fort Worth, staying in Tarrant County. A lot of these stakeholders don't necessarily agree. It's my job to convince them that, like we believe, that staying in Fort Worth, staying in Tarrant County, doing business in Fort Worth, doing business in Tarrant County the way we have for the last 64 years is the right thing for us to do. And as the leader of the project, it's my recommendation to NBC Universal to do this project, which is why I ask your help, because ultimately the decision won't be made by me, it will be made by somebody at NBC Universal Executive Management. And I'd like to be able to say that we've done everything we can to secure this facility. So I thank you for your time. And any questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Just a comment. Sure. I appreciate the lengths that you've gone through to keep this vital institution in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. There is a tremendous history between Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and Channel 5 and its affiliated companies. While I regret seeing the move from the historic site there on, I guess, Broadcast Hill in Meadowbrook, I understand why that's necessary. And I want to just appreciate the fact that it will still be a Fort Worth institution and that you have gone to great lengths to keep it so.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Because I know there are other sites in other counties that some people have preferred over this one.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We will be working with KXAS in the city of Fort Worth to get our agreements done and come back to you at a later date with a final agreement for tax abatement, unless anyone has any questions on that. Or if you do, contact me. And then I can't tell you a date right now. We're waiting for the city of Fort Worth to get their agreements done, but once that happens, we'll move forward with ours. Thank you.
Members of court, if we could go to item C. This is a update from the TCDRS program. Ms. Glenn is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning again. This is the time of the year that we come to the courts and have a presentation on the status and the state of our retirement plan. This morning we have Christina Acuna, and I'm going to ask Ms. Acuna to step forward. She's presented before the Commissioners Court before. What we've asked Christina to do this morning are a couple of things. We've asked her to keep it as brief as possible. We've asked her just for a quick review for the Commissioners Court of our current plan provisions. We'd like for her to spend a little bit of time talking to the Commissioners Court about where our plan stands currently. And then we've also asked her to talk a little bit about the rates for 2012 and also some considerations for 2012. So with that, then I'll ask Ms. Acuna to come forward.
Thank you, Tina. Good morning, Your Honor, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here again that time of year. Tina gave me a great introduction, so we'll just go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Brief reminder about who Texas County and District Retirement System is. We were created in 1967 by Texas Legislature, and we administer retirement, disability, and survivor benefits for more than 220,000 Texans all over the state. Each employer plan is unique, as each entity's governing body has local control over their plan. And every year, you as a court have the ability to adjust your benefit levels to meet budgetary needs. Additionally, each plan is funded independently by employer contributions and employee contributions, but pulled together for investment purposes. We do not receive any state funding. This is a brief overview about how the plan works. Tarrant County employees contribute 7% of their pay towards retirement, and their member accounts grow by 7% interest annually, and that's guaranteed by state statute. While your employees are saving in advance for their retirement down the road, Tarrant County is also pre-funding the benefits that they're promising their employees down the road when they are ready to retire. And your rate, which is adjusted annually, is determined by your benefit selections and also by actuarial assumptions performed by our outside actuary. The 5 main assumptions that we look at from year to year are return on investments, employee withdrawals, payroll growth, mortality rates, and expected retirements. Finally, at retirement, when an employee is ready to retire, we will calculate their benefit based on their account balance, their age at retirement, the option that that member chooses, and then also the employer matching that is involved. It's important to remember that employees are only entitled to that employer match if they become vested with Tarrant County and are retirement age eligible. If an employee were to withdraw their money or to separate from employment and withdraw their money, even if they were vested, they forfeit the right to that match later down the road. Because TCDRS is an advanced funded plan, meaning that employees are saving for their benefit over their entire career, and you're contributing to those benefits throughout the course of that employee's career, you're getting the power of investment earnings over time. And as you can see from this slide, almost 80% of the benefits going out the door are funded through investment earnings, which means that only 12% comes from employer contributions and 10% from employee contributions. I want to highlight the key strengths of the TCDRS plan. Employees contribute their own money towards their retirement, and you are advance funding the future benefits you promise current employees. As an employer, you have flexibility to control costs. If you choose, you can adjust your benefits annually to meet your budgetary needs, as I mentioned earlier. Our funding policy is the most conservative in Texas and one of the most conservative nationally. We can't be lumped in with all those other pension systems that you're hearing about in the media today. And the 2 main reasons for that is because we require that all 624 of our independent plans fully fund their actuarially required rate. We don't give them a choice to fund it at a level less than that. The second thing that sets us apart is that we don't allow liabilities to roll forward from one year to the next. We make sure that all liabilities are paid off within a closed 20-year amortization. Finally, TCDRS assets total $17.6 billion as of December 31st, 2010, and it costs only 0.25% to run the TCDRS plan. That low cost includes all services we provide to employers, me, an employer services rep, going out and talking to the various counties and districts that we serve. We have a member service field team that goes out and conducts presentations for your employees to educate them on their benefits. It includes all the publications and statements, and also it's our professional investment management is included in that cost as well. So now let's take a look at your costs and your benefits. Benefits are paid through employee and employer contributions and earnings. When TCDRS hits its 8% investment return benchmark, we are able to credit all employer accounts with 9% earnings. Of course, employees are guaranteed that 7% annually, regardless of market ups and downs. Currently, Tarrant County's required rate is 12.3% of payroll. So now let's take a look at what's in the future for 2012. Your 2012 normal cost rate, which funds the benefits you've promised current employees, is 7.85%. Your 2012 unfunded actuarially accrued liability rate for benefits that have not been saved for in advance is 5.14%, resulting in a combined required rate total of 12.99% beginning January 1st, 2012. In a world where nothing ever changed, the normal cost rate would likely be enough to fund future benefits, but benefits may be changed, such as adopting COLAs, and annual gains and losses will occur, and this is what affects and adds to the unfunded actuarial accrued liability rate. Lots of numbers on this graph, and I really just want to focus, especially in the interest of time, on the last column, the reasons for the increase in your rate change. So I'm going to focus on the 2011 and 2012. And the only 2 reasons that your rate went up are, one, as you can see, is denoted by the investment return, that red number. Your rate went up 0.45%. Even though we had a gain in 2010 of 12.8%, that was what the market returned, better than 8%, and we were able to pass through 18% to employers. However, it wasn't large enough to mitigate the losses from 2008 that we had to pass through.
So again, that 18% came from you guarantee the employees 7.
Yes.
So at the 12, you got an extra 5+%. That added to the 12% that the employer got. So in effect, the county gets the benefit of anything over the 7%.
That is absolutely correct, yes.
Okay. And as I recall, do you have what the return has been over the last 20 versus 20 or 25 years on an average return?
Yes, I do. The average, let me pull that out. I don't believe it is in a slide. I know the 30-year return is 10.1%, and let me make sure this is the right year. Yes, it is. Our 25-year return is 8.7%.
Okay.
20-year, 8.2. So since we are long-term investors, we don't see a need to adjust that 8% assumption because long-term we are hitting it. And on average, system-wide, the members that do retire with the system are retiring with approximately 17 years of service. So that's
So they're getting an average of how much of their base pay when they, what, do you have a percentage on that?
A replacement ratio for a careered employee with Tarrant County, meaning when we think of careered, somebody that stays approximately 20 years, they are replacing approximately 25 years, they would replace approximately 70%. So at about 20 years, it's going to be less than that, probably around 50-55%.
And if it's 17 years is the average, then it's even going to be less than the...
Probably, yeah.
Probably going to be... They're going to be less than 50% of what they're...
And that's the system-wide average. I could figure out, I don't know it off the top of my head, but Tarrant County could be greater than that as far as the years of specific years for your employee demographic, but I could look at that and tell you exactly what it is.
Thank you.
Okay? Okay, so that's the first reason. So even though we had gains, the losses that we had to pass through were greater than the gains that were passed through. If you'll see from the previous year, for 2010, 2011, you see a negative 0.41% in that category. That actually represents positive plan experience. In 2009, we had a positive 26.7% return. So the excess gains that we were able to pass through to employers outweighed the losses for that year that were passed through. So your rate was actually lowered last year as a result of investment return.
You took the 2008 and you amortized that loss over
20 years.
Over a 20-year. That closed 20 years that you're talking about.
That closed 20 years. That's correct. But for the next 10 years, from 2008 or for 2009 through 2019, the rate's going to go up incrementally unless, of course, we're able to recoup those losses beforehand.
Through the excess earnings on that year.
Yes, through better than expected 8% returns. Absolutely. Okay. The other reason that your rate went up this year is under the demographic and other changes category. You can see that it went up 0.23%. That is directly attributed to the low payroll growth. Our actuaries assumed that Tarrant County's payroll would grow larger than what it did, and because it didn't grow by as much as what our actuaries assumed, it resulted in some negative plan experience and a rate increase. So if you don't adopt a COLA or make any sort of benefit enhancements, your rate for 2012 will be 12.99%. Of course, any sort of benefit enhancement will add to that rate. Okay. And just to give you an idea about your funded ratio, you're currently funded at 81%. 429 employers out of 624 that we have are funded at greater than 80%, but less than 100%. So this represents 69% of all our employers in our system. So you are in the majority there. This provides more detail about the changes in your assets and liabilities should you decide to adopt another 80% CPI COLA this year. The cost of adopting an 80% CPI COLA, and I'm just going over this because that's traditionally what y'all have done, is 0.17%. So it would raise your 2012 required rate to 13.16%, which is seen in line 10. The dollar cost of this one COLA adoption is approximately $4 million. Which is seen in the increase in the UAL in line 14. Of course, that $4 million would be amortized over 15 years.
How long have we been doing the 80% COLA?
You have been adopting 80% CPI COLAs consistently since 1994.
And again, that represents 80% of the cost of living adjustment for that current, or for the previous current year, or for the previous.
From CPI inflation from December 2009 to December 2010 was 1.5%. So you're essentially replacing about 80% of that, since y'all been doing it for so long. But what the CPI COLA does is it basically looks at each retiree individually, looks at the amount of years that person has been retired, and denotes how much cumulative lost buying power that retiree has lost over their retirement years. The court then decides to replace 80% of that cumulative amount.
And if we were to skip a year, then when we come back, do we have to make up the year that we skipped?
With the CPI, yes. Of course, if you went with a flat rate, it would just be a flat percentage increase. But yes, the CPI will catch the years where maybe a COLA was not passed. Okay, so let's take a look at your current benefits, just a quick reminder of them. Employees are depositing at 7%, and the employer match is 200%, or $2 for every dollar the employee has from deposits and interest at the end of their career. Prior service credit is
we're really not matching as we're doing. We're pulling we pay 7%. The county's share this year, you're saying, would be about 13%.
Correct.
So it's not quite.
The 200%. Because
of the savings and because of the excess earnings that the county gets the benefit from.
Correct, yes. The 150% for prior service credit, that just is for those individuals, and I'm not sure, since y'all have been with TCDRS for so long, that anybody's been here prior to when y'all began participation with TCDRS. But if any of those individuals were here, and I doubt that there are very many.
Debbie, have you been here longer?
No. Okay. So prior service credit doesn't really apply since nobody's been here probably since the 60s, 67, 68, I think is when y'all came into the system. So we'll skip that. Retirement eligibility, these are just when people can retire. The minimum amount of time they have to work is 8 years for vesting. So they can retire at age 60 with 8 years of service, or with any age and 30 years of service. And then finally with the rule of 75, where a person's age plus 3 years of service combined to equal the number 75. Your last adopted COLA was in 2011. It was an 80% CPI. Optional plan provisions, military service is worked into the plan. So for those people that have previously served active duty in the military, we will credit them with up to 5 years of service time once they are vested. The last buyback that the court adopted was back in 1997. And we've already discussed the cost of living adjustments. Optional benefits that could be adopted are partial lump sum at retirement. Not very many plans system-wide have that option worked in. And also optional group term life insurance is another benefit that could be added. Now I'm briefly going to go over the benefits which that you have local control over from year to year. Of course, retirement eligibility is one of them. It's important to remember, though, that once you're at the lower eligibility requirement, that eligibility requirement can never be raised by your court or any future courts. So, for instance, y'all are at the rule of 75. That could never be placed back up to the rule of 80. Y'all are at an 8-year vest. It could never go up to 10. It could go to 5, but it would be a permanent change. Same thing with the 20 years, any age. It could be lowered to that, but it would be a permanent change.
And we're at 30 right now.
You're at 30 years, correct, which is system-wide average. Employee deposit rate, your employees are depositing at a rate of 7%. Again, that's the system-wide average. Most employer plans have a 7% employee deposit rate. But again, you can adjust this annually. It can be set anywhere from 4 to 7%. Setting the county's match. Of course, y'all are at 200%. We require that all employers designate a match anywhere from 100% or dollar for dollar, all the way up to 250% or $2.50 for every dollar the employee has saved. This can be adjusted up or down from where you are currently in 5% increments from year to year. Your 200% match is the system-wide average, so most employer plans do system-wide have that 2-to-1 match worked into the plan. And, of course, the COLAs. I won't talk about the CPI-based one since I've already discussed that earlier about how that one works. But the flat rate, every year, the TCDRS Board of Directors will cap the flat rate COLA based on CPI inflation. Since it was 1.5% for the previous year, they rounded up, capped it at 2%. And these are the two COLAs that you have the ability to choose from year to year. Or, of course, you can decide to eliminate.
So if we move to a flat rate deal, then we could do one year and then not do it and then do it the next, or
Absolutely.
in no way be forced back to catch up?
Absolutely, yes. Okay. Although it is admirable to provide these COLAs year after year, adopting them, repeat COLAs can have an adverse effect on the cost of the plan. It can lead to what we call rate creep. What is rate creep? To put it simply, it's stacking those unfunded liabilities one on top of the other. Remember that each COLA adds 15 years of unfunded liability to the plan. COLAs are permanent increases to the retirees' income, so your plan will have to fund them as long as those retirees live. And from the experience study we did about 2 years ago, we do know people are living longer. There are two ways to curb costs in the plan. One is an annual lump sum contribution. The other is adopting an elected rate higher than your required rate. The benefits are either that you help pre-fund future benefit enhancements, such as adopting COLAs, and it can also offset future negative plan experience, such as the negative plan experience from the 2008 investments, which are still in the pipeline.
If we go back,
I'm sorry?
If we were to do a lump sum, how much does that save us? By lump sum, what you're saying is we're going to pay it at the beginning of the year versus paying it out over the year?
No, a lump sum can be actually made to TCDRS at any point in the year, and whatever amount that lump sum is, what it does is dollar for dollar, it goes towards reducing your unfunded liability by that amount.
Plus, we have that money in there to earn the return, whatever the return would be.
Yes, so for instance, if we were to have another year greater than 8% returns and you'd made a lump sum contribution, you would have more assets in your plan, so you would receive more on those extra earnings that were passed through.
But this lump sum contribution is an optional payment in addition to our annual
That's
rate.
absolutely right. It's in addition to your annually determined required rate. The other positive effect is that if a lump sum is made to the plan, the following year, when we assess your 2013 rate, it would have a lowering effect on your rate because essentially you're funding your liabilities faster than a 20-year closed period by doing that. So just want to focus and kind of end the presentation by focusing on the COLA consideration. And I've just come up with some different scenarios that y'all may or may not want to consider. Of course, this is up to your discretion. One of them is to maintain the 80% CPI-based COLA. To reduce the COLA, maybe in an effort to control or reduce costs, or of course you can decide to not adopt the COLA at all. And now I'm going to show you the projection tool that we have available to assist you in your decision-making process, if it helps. And in the projection tool that I have, I went ahead and I input the following 4 scenarios that you see up top, which I'm going to show you in the next slide. What this COLA or what this forecaster does is you can plug in different benefit enhancements or reductions, and it will forecast where your rate is expected to go over the next 15 years. So for planning purposes, it's really good. So I want to, it's probably better if I just skip to this last slide. So on the current plan, this assumes where your rate is going to go if y'all do not adopt any more COLAs and just keep your plan as is, maintain your current plan. I have the year 2019 highlighted.
And this assumes earnings of 8%.
It does, yes. I highlighted the year 2019 because that is when we expect all 2008 losses to be pushed through, so that should be the peak of where that rate is going. As Judge Whitley mentioned, it does, worked into these projections are our 8% return assumption. So what that means is that if we have more years of better than expected returns in excess of 8%, you will see these numbers lower. On the other hand, if we have another down year in any one of those years where we do not earn 8%, if it's lower than that, the projections that you see here will be higher. Proposed plan number 1, just to show you the cost difference, that assumes a repeat, adopting every year a 1% flat rate COLA. In 2019, it's estimated that the rate would cap at 16.08%. Proposed plan number 2, it's still a CPI COLA, it's just a little less, it's a 50%. Doing that every year, the rate is projected to cap at 16.92%. And then proposed plan number 3 is just, which y'all have been doing over the past several years, the 80% CPI COLA. And if y'all continue to adopt it, your rate is projected to go to 18.4% in that amount of time, factoring in losses and the added COLAs over the years. I know that this is not the prettiest picture to end on, but it is the best tool that we have for projecting what making these sort of decisions does to the plan year after year, and really does help most employers in guiding them in what they're going to do from year to year. I can input any sort of scenario that you want into the plan. I even have the ability to show you, to plug in a lump sum amount and show you the positive effect that it would have on the rate as far as lowering it long term by making that extra contribution.
How much time, do you need?
I don't need, I can do it. As soon as I'm back at the office, I could get it to you that day. It's very fast. It's a really neat tool, and it's very fast and efficient, and I could email it to you. And you have until December 15th to let us know what y'all are going to do with the plan, how you want to proceed.
Do you have any idea right now what the earnings have been on the plan for the first 6 months of this year?
We're up at about 4%. So we're not near that 8, but it's about roughly where we were at this time last year. And then really all that matters is December 31st. And last year, December 31st, we rebounded and came up to about 12.8. This year, it's the crystal ball. It's the big question. But currently, we're up at about 4% after quarter 2.
Are we going broke Tuesday? Are we going broke next Tuesday?
I don't know. It depends on what our congressional folks decide they want to do between now and Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that'll have a big effect on what happens in the market. Do y'all have any questions for me? Any other questions?
Just that these 2019 numbers are based upon pretty much a worst-case scenario.
No, not worst case, because we're assuming 8% return. So it's assuming we hit our assumption. It's not best case. It's the most stable case that we can project. And then that's why it's great to get these projections from year to year, because we've got another year where we're able to input those new earnings.
Perhaps a better way of putting it is that it's based upon very conservative assumptions.
Yes, and it is all based upon assumptions. It's based upon your 2010 valuation, what happened demographically within Tarrant County. That's worked into the projection tool as well. As far as projecting out how many retirements are we expecting within that 10-year frame. It's all of those different pieces working together. But of course, the investment return assumption is probably the largest piece of the puzzle in these assumptions.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Christina. We don't have any, of course, decisions that we need for the court to make today. As Christina indicated, we do have a little bit of time. And so what our plan is to work with the court and the administrator's office and then come back to you at the appropriate time with some options for the court's consideration.
As we move into our budget, I think one of the things we may want to look at is a couple of those options which she just indicated. And what's good about it is that if we have a consensus as to what we'd like to see as examples, we can get an immediate response. So as y'all consider this, as you begin thinking about this, if you've got some examples that you would like run, then we can let Tina know and kind of go through that process.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
Commissioner Wynn, I had mentioned earlier in the meeting that the reason for your not being here at the beginning was that you were with the family, I believe, of the victims of the shooting this weekend. I don't know if you want to make any comments or.
Well, I'm sure you and my fellow commissioners and everybody in this room have heard about the tragic news. It was a shock for me when I received the first phone call at about 7:40 p.m. Saturday night. I'm trying to sort through and doing my best to help out these individuals and their families. It essentially was a domestic violence that spun horrifically out of control. There were symptoms, but nobody in the family believed it. There were intervention from Tarrant County prosecutor, but Trinity Doe, the wife of the shooter, disregarded it. Family members intervened, but perhaps, according to them, they could have tried harder. We can ask ourselves many, many questions, but what at hand is what can we do to put our wings around them and help them. A family is shattered completely. 3 sisters, the only 3 daughters in the family, were killed that night. 31-year-old, 30, and 16. The 16-year-old came from Fort Smith, Arkansas, to attend the birthday party, to celebrate her nephew's birthday party. A total of 6 people were killed, including the shooter. What makes it even more unfortunate for this family is they had another son, 25-year-old, who married about a year ago. His love from Vietnam. And he had a car accident and experienced a stroke and has been hospitalized for over a month. And his wife, his newly wed wife, attended the birthday party, and she was also killed. I cannot explain to you or to the public of how these things can happen. Perhaps now is the time that we're going to have to rely on our faith and move on. My task at hand is to work with the community and the religious leaders to take care of the deceased. We have to transport Ms. Thuy V. Nguyen back to her homeland, to her parents. We have to transport the other 4 individuals back to Fort Smith, Arkansas, to be buried there Saturday. And then we have to deal with 2 young children. A young boy, 11-year-old, witnessed his father killed his mother. We have a 5-year-old girl. Both of them are orphaned now, have no parents. The grandparents on both sides have very little income. What's going to happen to these 2 kids? Only God can tell. I know what we can do is we are working to establish a trust fund. And I will beg for your help with that. And I have talked to Mr. G.K. Manias to see what we as Tarrant County government can do to provide the services and the counseling necessary to make sure that these 2 children don't end up being victim of the circumstance. I ask for your prayer and I ask for your help in any way. Thank you for allowing me a time to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's nothing further, the Commissioners' Court will now recess the open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under Sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from closed session, we'll now address the following items.
Court, if we could go to the administrator section, item number 7. We're requesting that the court approve the purchase of EMC Networker and Avamar software and hardware maintenance and support services utilizing the state power contract, which is BR-SDD-14118 for information technology, subject to the successful negotiation of the contract.
I make a motion. Approve.
Second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Please note that Commissioner Brooks is not here at this time.
Mr. Court, we could go to item number 8. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court award RFP number 2011-107 Enterprise Storage Arrays Global Duplication Application, other supporting component service and training for IT to EMC Corporation, subject to the successful negotiation of the contract.
I move approval.
Second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all we have at this time.
There being no further business, we are adjourned.
GK, where's our meeting?
It's in 503.
Not anybody in there.
Did
Get somebody in there.
my meeting?